In the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico lives one of the rarest whales on Earth, the Rice's whale. Rice's whale was first recognized as its own species in 2021. This species exists nowhere else in the world, and scientists estimate that fewer than 50 individuals remain. At the same time, the Gulf of Mexico is one of the most active regions for offshore oil drilling in the United States. This overlap has created growing tensions between energy production and species survival. Offshore drilling introduces intense noise into the ocean, especially through seismic airgun blasting, which can reach up to 260 decibels. In comparison, the normal sound range for Rice's whale communication is 155 decibels. Rice's whales depend on sound to survive. They use low-frequency calls to communicate, navigate, and find food. Offshore drilling byproducts can disrupt these low-frequency calls, causing stress and even leading whales to abandon their one and only habitat. In addition to noise, ship traffic associated with drilling operations poses another major risk: vessel strikes. Federal assessments have concluded that vessel strikes related to oil and gas operations are likely to enhance threat to the species' survival. Oil spills pose an even larger threat. The 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill released around 134 million gallons of oil into the Gulf, exposing nearly half of the entire Rice's whale habitat to destruction. Scientists have concluded that an estimated 22% of the Rice's whale population was killed as a result. For a species already on the brink, impacts like these can be devastating. Now let's get to the lawsuit. In response to these looming threats, in August 2024, the U.S. District Court for the District of Maryland ruled that the National Marine Fisheries Service's 2024 biological opinion for federally regulated offshore oil and gas activities in the Gulf of Mexico violated the Endangered Species Act. Environmental groups such as the Sierra Club argue that current protections are not enough to prevent the extinction of protected species in the Gulf. The court found that the 2020 BiOp failed to adequately assess threats to protected species, including risks from oil spills, vessel strikes, and other industrial impacts. As a result, the court vacated the 2020 BiOp and remanded it for a new analysis, as it was legally invalid and had to be redone to comply with federal environmental law. The biological opinion underestimated the risk of oil spills and relied on population assumptions that did not account for declines following events such as the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. It addressed only some stressors, such as sound or vessel traffic, without explaining how those measures would prevent jeopardy to the species' continued existence. So, the incidental take statement, which is supposed to estimate how many whales might be harmed by drilling activities, did not properly account for oil spills or vessel strikes. This meant that the original analysis didn't satisfy the ESA's jeopardy standard. Energy companies argue that limiting offshore drilling could harm domestic energy supply and economic stability. Meanwhile, conservationists warn that without stronger protections, the Rice's whale may not survive. The judge set a vacatur effective date for May 21, 2025, giving the National Marine Fisheries Service time to issue a new biological opinion that corrected the deficiencies. A revised BiOp was issued on that date, but environmental groups, including the Sierra Club, filed another challenge. This time, arguing that the updated version still fails to properly protect Rice's whale and other species. At the center of this debate is a fundamental question. Can the United States balance its energy production with the protection of a species that exists nowhere else on Earth? Legal battles continue as courts weigh the risks of offshore drilling against environmental protections, and recent rulings have delayed or modified oil lease sales in the Gulf, citing insufficient analysis of impacts on endangered species, of course, including the Rice's whale. At the same time, policymakers face pressure to maintain domestic energy production. Now there is a high-stakes conflict between economic priorities and environmental responsibility. The Rice's whale case highlights a broader issue in environmental policy. How do we protect fragile ecosystems while maintaining human energy demands? Scientists warn that even minimal losses, as little as a few individuals, could push this species towards extinction given its small population and low reproductive process. Efforts like habitat protections, vessel restrictions, and improved environmental reviews may slow the decline, but they may not be enough without stronger action. The future of Rice's whale remains uncertain. Its survival depends on decisions made in courtrooms, in government agencies, and energy policy debates. But this case is so much more than a legal battle. This case is a test of whether our modern society can find balance between economic greed and our responsibility to nature. To see if humans can manage to protect one of Earth's most vulnerable species while still managing to power its future with a more empathetic and conscious collective mind.